My name is Caedyn Huston, and I'm a second-year member of the Lime Creek Loudwires 4-H Club. The title of my presentation is 17 years ago. That's right, isn't it? On November 19th, 1863, President Lincoln reached inside of his coat pocket, pulled out a piece of paper, and recited the following address. 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation, so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on the great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives, that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little know, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, in that government, of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. That was President Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. What was it? Lincoln was invited to the dedication of the National Cemetery at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, to give a few brief remarks, and it's one of the shortest and most famous speeches in American history. There are many myths of the Gettysburg Address, and throughout studying this with my dad, there's many things that we thought were true that actually weren't true at all. Was it 269 words or 272 words? The different manuscripts say that, some say that it says under God, some of the others don't, and it was not written hastily on the way to Gettysburg, and we know that because of how much detail that you can visibly see when you read that address, and that it's almost impossible to write something like that up that quickly. And it was not seen as a failure or a disappointment. The Civil War was very political. Abraham Lincoln was the first Republican president, and if you were a Republican, you thought high of this. You thought it was amazing. But if you were a Democrat, you hated it. You didn't think that it was respectful for him to give such a short speech at a dedication like this, and that he didn't talk for long enough. And he did not keep the speech in his hat. He also did not keep any rabbits in his hat. And his address was not written on a napkin or an envelope. And we still don't know if the original copy that he carried that day even still exists. Facts about the Gettysburg Address. There's only one photograph that is known of Lincoln at the address. He's right here, and coincidentally enough, he actually doesn't have his hat on. And Lincoln was not the keynote speaker of the dedication. A gentleman by the name of Edward Everett was the main speaker, and he spoke for over an hour. There are 5 different manuscripts. The Nicolay copy, which was the first copy that Lincoln ever wrote, and it's written on White House letterhead and lined paper. Hay copy is a second copy written by Lincoln, and it is on the same lined paper as the Nicolay copy, and both those copies were written before the address. The Everett copy, Edward Everett, who was the main speaker at the address, requested a copy to be auctioned off for wounded Union soldiers, and the Union cause. Bancroft copy. George Bancroft requested a copy, and he wanted many facsimile copies made so he could sell those. But Lincoln wrote on both sides of the paper, which made it unprintable or unusable. The Bliss copy. That's most likely the copy that you have seen in a book or have read, and it's the last copy that Lincoln wrote, and it's the only copy that he titled and signed. So we most likely think that that's the one he wanted people to go off of because he titled and signed it, so he wanted people to look at it highly. Here are my resources. In conclusion, I think it's very important that people know history so we can keep mistakes from happening again. And my parents tell me all the time that it's okay to make mistakes, but you gotta learn from those. And the Civil War and slavery were terrible, terrible mistakes. And if we learn from those, we can keep similar things from happening again. And this is proof that sometimes less is more. You don't need to say a lot to have your words have a very strong meaning and mean a lot or get your word out. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Are there any questions?